Welcome to Fox Valley Autism Treatment Program Line Therapist Training, Part 7, Specific Strategies. If you are working on teaching children to play, make sure you remember to keep it fun and try and incorporate it into their interests. When teaching friendship skills, remember to be a role model. Practice, model, and even role play different scenarios. Exposure is the number one thing that helps decrease fears and dislikes. It is very important that you assess if the child can handle the full exposure, though, because if the fear is too great, you may need to break it down into smaller steps, like showing them a cartoon picture of what scares them rather than forcing them to be in the same room as their fear. Exposure is also very important for food tolerance. It is also important that they do not get escape if they don't want to eat the food. Determine what level they need to do, whether it's sniffing the food, licking the food, or taking a bite. And make sure they do that before they move on to their next task. To increase compliance, it is very important that you follow through with everything that you say. Also, don't word things as a question if it's actually something they have to do. Make sure you follow through all the time. Holds and restraints is something we are not allowed to do at this job. Under no circumstances can you physically hold a child, restrain them, or lock them in a room. The only time it is acceptable to restrain a child is if they are going to severely hurt themselves, like if they're running into traffic. But if you do have to do a restraint in a situation like that, make sure you document it so there is a clear record of what happened. You will see in the data sheets that you work with different prompt levels that you are supposed to use with the client. Make sure you follow these prompt levels and fade them out so the client does not become dependent on the prompts. To work on family follow-through, it's important to include the family in what you're doing. Sometimes it just means sharing with the family what you've done and what has worked. Other times it actually means doing therapy with the family so they can see you do it in action. To promote generalization, it's important to work on skills in a variety of settings in a variety of ways. Don't always work on the skill in the exact same way every time. To work on developing new skills, what key factors are important? All of the above. Make it fun. There's lots of repetition that's needed, and model how to do it. Question 2. The child screams, cries, and visibly shakes when exposed to pizza. Would you expose him to pizza every day until he gets over it? Or would you break it down into smaller, easier steps until he builds up to it? Yes, break it down into smaller steps. Clearly the fear is severe, so you need to systematically build up to it. Question 3. Is it okay to physically force a child to go to his room? No, it is not okay. And if you did this in front of a caseworker or somebody like that, it's likely that you would get reported. Question 4. How does prompt dependence happen? People do not fade their prompts out fast enough. So be paying attention to how much prompt is actually needed. And if the child doesn't need your prompting, fade it out. Question 5. Does including the parents in what you're doing increase or decrease parent involvement? It increases parent involvement. Letting them see what you're doing or hear about what you did is very important to help them get involved.